should we as a profession be getting more used to pragmatic options, especially in cost-conscious environments? And the answer to that for me is absolutely yes. We need to respond to the economic climate. Welcome to The Consult Room, the podcast where we explore the evolving world of modern pet care. I'm Dr. Paul Manktelow, a UK veterinary surgeon with a deep passion for pet health and welfare. In each episode, I'll be exploring key issues, challenging perspectives, and offering expert insight and practical advice. Because ultimately, my mission is to improve the lives of pets and the people who love them. Today, I want to shine a light into the Competition and Markets Authority's, the CMA, investigation into the UK's veterinary sector. Now, this is generating a huge amount of discussion in the profession and also in the wider media, but it's pretty complex, so I wanted to try and break it down. Now, this inquiry seeks to address concerns about the rising costs and accessibility of veterinary care, with the CMA poised to release its initial findings very, very soon. Now, as a chief vet with over 2 decades experience in the charity veterinary sector, I've kind of witnessed firsthand the really profound impact that escalating veterinary costs can have on pet owners, particularly those who are struggling to afford even the most basic of care. So from a personal perspective, I really welcome this investigation, but I also recognise the real complexity of the UK veterinary industry and, of course, the rising costs within it. In terms of delivering veterinary services, which have escalated well beyond UK inflation rates. But I'm hoping this investigation will identify some real areas for change in the industry that would help provide more people access to affordable veterinary care for their pets. So in this episode, I'm going to explore the facts surrounding the CMA investigation. I'm going to discuss the potential implications for both pet owners and veterinary professionals. And I'm going to consider whether this initiative will actually lead to meaningful changes in the industry. Now, the CMA started its investigation into veterinary services in September 23. Now, they were responding to concerns about increasing fees and the consolidation of veterinary practices under corporate ownership. But the primary objectives of the CMA investigation are really kind of confined to the core remit of the CMA, which is to assess whether competition is functioning effectively and if consumers are receiving fair value for the services provided. But some of the key issues that were identified include escalating costs. As I mentioned before, veterinary services and the cost of veterinary services has risen well above inflation in recent years. There was concerns around transparency, and pet owners are finding it difficult to compare prices between practices due to a lack of clear information when accessing treatment. At the time of the initial investigation, I think I heard about a figure that 80% of practices weren't publishing their core prices on their websites. There was also concerns about corporate consolidation. Now, the ownership landscape of veterinary practices has changed considerably. Back in 2013, I think it was 89% of businesses were independent. Now, if you fast forward to present year, only about 45% of practices are independent. The rest of them have been bought by these big corporates, namely the big six that we talk about a lot in the profession. There are also some concerns about when pets are referred for specialist treatment. Many of the referrals appear to be internal. So where you've got a corporate practice that runs a primary care practice, kind of a GP practice, and then they have a referral practice, and they were internally referring to their own practices, which is potentially limiting options for pet owners. So the forthcoming CMA report is anticipated to recommend measures aimed at enhancing competition and improving transparency within the sector. So those are kind of the two main points. But I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about the media coverage surrounding this investigation and its impact on the profession. Now, the coverage that came out has really focused on accusations of overcharging by vets, which has painted a real picture of an industry that's driven by profit rather than animal welfare. And let's be honest, veterinary businesses are just that. They are businesses. They are there to generate a profit. But it's really important that they do it in a ethical and, I think, an affordable way for pet owners, but cost concerns are really valid. And this narrative in the media has overlooked the complexities of running a veterinary practice. And, in recent years, we've seen big rising overheads. We've seen staffing shortages, which is driving the salaries of veterinary surgeons up, and the significant costs of modern medical equipment and treatments. I know from my own perspective that our costs of running a charity service at Blue Cross rose by £1 million just in 1 year. So, we're feeling it across all of the sector. But this negative portrayal has really contributed to a backlash against veterinary professionals at a time when I feel the industry is already grappling with some serious resilience issues. Reports are indicating high levels of stress, burnout, and even an increase in people leaving the profession due to these mounting pressures. So I think this investigation has added further strain, with many vets and practice teams feeling really unfairly targeted and misunderstood. But I think it's important to balance the conversation. We've got to recognise the economic challenges faced by pet owners, but also, veterinary businesses. But we've also got to recognise the dedication of veterinary professionals to provide the best care possible under increasingly difficult circumstances. But I think most of all, we've got to consider the potential animal welfare implications of the veterinary sector not being able to adapt and to continue to provide veterinary services in a way that is affordable for clients. So what are the implications for pet owners? Well, the CMA's investigation could bring several changes. It could bring enhanced transparency. So we may be able to see clearer pricing structures. This may empower owners to make more informed decisions about their pet's healthcare. Traditionally, people register a veterinary practice and they go to that practice for all their pet's needs. And there's an assumption that perhaps vets are charged the same, and that's not always the case. So if we've got more transparency around pricing and practices can publish pricing, then owners could make decisions about which practices they access for which treatments to get the best deal. Now, it could also create improved affordability for clients. Increased competition could lead to more reasonable pricing, and it could alleviate some of those financial pressures. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about insurance as well, because pet insurance premiums have seen substantial increases. I saw a report that they increased by 21% up to the year in March 24 last year. Now, this adds on another layer of financial burden for owners. So it's the rising veterinary cost in the background of pushing up insurance premiums, and for many, insurance is becoming completely unaffordable. Now, from my experience, I've observed that these financial challenges often result in kind of delayed veterinary visits, which can make health issues worse. And we know from research that a significant number of pets are not receiving timely treatment due to owners' cost concerns. And on social media, you can see it every day. Owners are sharing their frustrations about escalating treatment costs. And for us in the charity sector, at Blue Cross, we're presented with thousands of pets every year for veterinary treatment or for rehoming, where the owners have, just simply run out of money and can't continue to afford treatment at their own vets. And some of them are having to make some really awful and heartbreaking decisions about giving their pets up, which is not a situation that anybody wants to be in. Now, I think it's important to note at this point that individual animal may respond differently to treatment, and that's the case in human medicine as well. And it often requires vets, clinicians to adjust their treatment plans, which can make estimating treatment costs quite tricky. And I get that, but I've worked in various different practices over the years, and I've seen some really variable estimates, where, really wide-ranging variable estimates, which just don't really inspire confidence in people accessing treatment. And I've also seen where different vets might take slightly different choices in terms of the drugs they use or, the consumables they use to treat the same condition. So you might end up with vets in the same practice that are charging different amounts to treat the same thing. And it doesn't necessarily sit right with me, but they're charging for the, the things that they use, but costs can vary. And, is this fair to the client? Surely if you're coming to a practice with a pet with a certain condition, you should be able to expect or know what's what that's going to charge. For the majority of cases, there are exceptions when treatment might take an unexpected turn, or the pet may deteriorate, and I totally appreciate that. But this raises the question: should we tighten up our pricing in the profession? Now, I know at Blue Cross we charge for some of our veterinary services, and where possible, we've created fixed pricing to really provide clarity and reassurance to clients so they can budget for it. And I've seen, some practices do this, some practices have adopted subscription models. So all clients pay one fixed price per month for all treatment. Now, for some, this works really well and it allows you to budget, but within systems like this sort of banding, there's always going to be kind of winners and losers. Now, take NHS prescription charges, for example. Everybody pays, I think it's £9 now, isn't it? Everybody knows what that charge is, and everybody knows you have to pay it to access your medicines. But some medicines will be a lot cheaper than that, and some will be more expensive. So you get winners and losers within that. But it's really about really trying to balance the simplicity of the system with fairness. And I feel like there is something kind of in the middle of those two models, which are you just charge one price or you charge for every individual thing that you use. So I feel like there's something in the middle there. And maybe we can look at some sort of banding system where we can get averages in there. But again, this could all come out of this investigation. So there could be a significant impact on the veterinary professional. Now, the investigation's findings may, affect the veterinary sector in various different ways. Practices might need to adapt to new regulations, promoting transparency and fair competition. It'd be interesting to see what happens and the considerations given to workforce pressures. The industry is already facing challenges such as workforce shortages and increased demand, which does contribute to stress and burnout among professionals. And this concept of balancing care and costs. Now, vets often encounter situations where clients struggle with the cost of care, leading to difficult decisions about treatment options. But we do package that just as I said, is this a difficult decision about treatment options? Should these not be a lot easier? Now, as a charity vet, I understand the delicate balance between providing high quality care and managing financial constraints. And I know that balance is becoming increasingly difficult, but in the charity sector, we've adopted a really pragmatic approach to treatment options. We aim for high quality treatment with a high welfare and a good outcome, but we do this in a way that minimizes the cost. So reducing the number of tests, only testing when it's going to have an impact or a real change in the treatment course you take. And it's interesting because a lot of veterinary practices, and particularly some of the big corporates, have really bold statements about pursuing clinical excellence or something similar. And of course, that's a good thing. You should be doing that. But is this pursuit of clinical excellence affordable for everybody? Should we as a profession be getting more used to pragmatic options, especially in cost-conscious environments? And the answer to that for me is absolutely yes. We need to respond to the economic climate. So in a broader context, the CMA's report could lead to several outcomes. It could lead to regulatory reforms, introducing policies to prevent excessive consolidation and ensuring a competitive market. It could lead to an overhaul of the outdated Veterinary Surgeons Act, which is actually the piece of legislation that governs veterinary surgeons. It dates back to 1966. Interestingly, it seems to be focused on individual vets and doesn't do much to regulate veterinary businesses. I think everybody within the profession would welcome a relook at that act because it doesn't feel like it's fit for purpose in the modern world. It could lead to pricing transparency. We could be having mandates for clear communication of fees to help consumers make informed choices. And interestingly, it may even come out that there's greater support for independent practices. There could be measures implemented to sustain the viability of smaller independent clinics against the backdrop of these large corporate groups. However, from my perspective, I think it's really important to consider whether these changes will effectively address the root causes of rising costs and accessibility issues, or if they might inadvertently introduce new challenges. So if I was going to conclude, I would say the CMA investigation shines a light on the critical aspects of veterinary services in the UK. And while reforms appear necessary, I 100% agree with that, it's really essential to approach these changes really thoughtfully to support clients and veterinary professionals alike. Ultimately, from my perspective, if it increases the access to affordable vet care, that is undoubtedly going to have a huge welfare impact on the UK's pets. So watch this space. The report should be coming out in the next few weeks, and I'll no doubt we'll be having further conversations on this really, really important subject. Thank you for listening to this episode. You'll find all the relevant links to this conversation in the show notes. If you enjoyed it, please follow us and leave a review. It really helps other people discover the podcast. For more insights on topics like this, you can connect with me on social media at Dr. Paul the Vet, or check out my website, theconsultroom.co.uk.